Can I start this episode of Clutter by making a counterintuitive point which might also sound a bit nutty? And that is that Pakistan's politics in some ways has begun to resemble Nepal's, at least in one manner. I know that there is a lot that is different between the two, but at least in one manner, which is when do you figure out that the country's politics is taking a really serious turn? That is when Chinese diplomats or the Chinese embassy in these two respective countries gets into the act, in Nepal as in Pakistan. So, the senior Chinese diplomats in Pakistan are now meeting leaders of the opposition. So, as I read Pakistani media, I read Express Tribune, but all of Pakistani media has covered it. Pang Chung-shu, and if I don't pronounce the name right, my apologies, I have to work on this. She is the deputy chief of mission at the Chinese embassy. So she called on the leaders of a tiny Pakistani party. Now, whether to call it an opposition party is also a bit tricky because Pakistan's politics is much too complex and much too shifting. There are too many factions of each party, and each party then has one more alphabet added to it. Each faction has one more alphabet added to it. And I find that every couple of years, my knowledge of Pakistan politics sort of becomes outdated because I also don't know who's on which side. So at this point, there is so many ex-prime ministers floating actively in the Pakistani political system that I am also befuddled. So she went to meet leaders of a small party today called PMLQ. PML is Pakistan Muslim League Qaid, named after Qaid-e-Azam. Now, this party is something that was once described as a king's party. King's party in the sense that Zia-ul Haq blessed it and sort of set it up because all dictators need to show some kind of political activity. And from him and later also Musharraf, these king's parties came into being. The current leader of this party, Chaudhry Shujat Hussain, also has been Prime Minister of Pakistan, the 16th Prime Minister of Pakistan. He's a wonderful human being. He's not been very well lately. He was the Interior Minister earlier under Nawaz Sharif. So everybody has been with everybody. If you ask me, if you have a quiz question for me and tell me the name of a Pakistani political party besides PPP, PTI, that is Imran's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, PPP is the Bhutto Party, Pakistan People's Party, or PMLN, that is Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, I will struggle to tell you which one has been where, except I know that a lot of them in the process, the leaders of a lot of them became Prime Minister. So Shujat Hussain also is an ex-Prime Minister. Now PMLQ has only 5 members in the National Assembly. Pakistan National Assembly has 342 members, which means the majority mark is 172. And the story right now is that Pakistan opposition has given a requisition, a constitutional requisition for a special session of the National Assembly. So this requisition is given under Article 54. In India, you do it while a session is on. In Pakistan, you can call a special session. So this session, they've asked to be called on March 22. And the second resolution that they put forward is that this is the motion of no confidence against the government. That is where PMLQ becomes critical. Why? Not because it's an opposition party. Actually, it's a member of the ruling coalition. Imran Khan's party, as I told you, half a mark is 172. Imran Khan's party, even by hook and by crook, and the full support of the first umpire, second umpire, third umpire, which in Pakistan's case is the army, he got only 155 seats. So he was 17 shorts. Those 17 then were made up for by nudging these smaller parties to support his government. One of those is PMLQ, and that has 5 members. If those 5 go away, then there is a problem. That is why the Chinese DCM has gone to meet these leaders of PMLQ and told them China has a big stake, or everybody has a big stake in Pakistan's political stability and economic stability, and China is there to help, etc., because obviously there is now concern that this time the threat to Imran Khan, the political dispensation there, may be for real. And we've begun to see it in Imran Khan's own speeches. What Imran Khan is doing is, he's now sounding a little bit panicky, as well as at the same time defiant. So what he's doing is he's going from place to place, holding big public meetings and speaking there. So his big speech was in South Punjab in a place called Deer, where he spoke for 46 minutes. And I have heard that entire speech. And you know what? His is not really an Islamist party. People, the groups that are against him, that is Pakistan Democratic Movement, and I will give you its composition. Pakistan Democratic Movement, which is again an alliance of opposition parties, plus Pakistan People's Party, which used to be in PDM but then went out, and right now its status is uncertain. But PPP also is a signatory to the motion of no confidence. So Imran in this speech is invoking the Holy Prophet and Islam and Islamic history and the Kalma, La ilaha illallah, several times. In fact, I counted 20 references to the Holy Prophet, and after that I stopped counting because I thought I might get my count wrong, and I give a precise count. Somebody will say, no, it wasn't 52, it was 53 or 51 or something like that. So his speeches have been purely Islamist. And that is where he's coming from, to the extent that he's also misquoting and misrepresenting Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He says that why did Muhammad Ali Jinnah set up Pakistan? And he says when Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah set up Pakistan, what did he say? Pakistan ka matlab kya? And the crowd says, Ya ilaha illallah. And then he goes on to explain the kalma, and he says, this is an invocation. This invocation tells us all Muslims to only bow to Allah and no other, right? So he's using this very strong Islamist line in his speeches. Again, in his speeches, something unprecedented is happening. That's why, once again, you can see why the Chinese diplomats are panicking or worrying right now. In his speeches, and this is rare in Pakistan, rarest of rare, he is attacking the army chief. So in this particular speech, in fact, it's quite an entertaining speech. If you want to listen to it, I will share a link with you. In that speech, very early, he makes a reference to General Bajwa by name, and later he alludes to him and the army. Now, let me tell you what he says later. Later he says, कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि हम neutral रहेंगे. So, because General Bajwa and the army have said that in terms of what's going on with Pakistan's politics, we shall stay neutral. And then he says कि Allah ने हम इंसानों को न्यूट्रल होने की इजाज़त ही नहीं दी है. That God Almighty has not given us people, human beings, the option to stay neutral. When something good or bad is happening, we have to take sides. We cannot be neutral. And then he goes on to say, neutral to जानवर होते हैं. Animals, beasts are neutral. Human beings cannot be neutral. I might contest that because I think if he met my dogs or I met his dogs, I don't think those animals will be neutral between him and me, right? But that said, the illusion then is that it's almost as if the army and General Bajwa are behaving like janwars. Now, it's also true that other people are now pulling out other things that he might have said in the past. For example, this clip, and you will see it for 2 seconds, where he says, आर्मी जमहूरियत का मतलब क्या है? वहाँ पे सारे इदारे, दैट मीन्स ऑल इंस्टीट्यूशंस, वेदर इट्स जुडिशरी, इट्स इलेक्शन कमीशन, it's the army. They should all be neutral. And today he is excoriating the same institution for saying that it will be neutral. Earlier in the same speech, he also refers to General Bajwa, this time by name. And he says, General Bajwa ने मुझे कहा, Imran, right? First of all, I don't think in a democracy, an army chief addresses his prime minister by his first name, but this is Imran Khan himself saying, General Bajwa ने मुझे कहा, Imran, तुम इसको डीजल मत बोलो. Now, what is a diesel story? Juicy and fun. Pakistan politics in so many ways is a lot more entertaining and colorful than India's, possibly because 60% of Pakistan is Punjab, and in many ways the national language, the dominant language of Pakistan is Punjabi. This is Maulana Fazlur Rahman. Now, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, you see his picture. He's one of the oldest fundamentalist party leaders in Pakistan, from Jamiyat-e-Ulema Pakistan. that is also faction ridden, but he has had many changes in his life. I'm tempted to use the expression avatar, but might be politically incorrect in this case. So he's been pro-Taliban, he's been pro-Nizam-e-Mustafa, that is Sharia law, full Sharia law. He's then pulled himself back. He no longer supports the Taliban. He also says that, look, Sharia law is fine, but you should not use compulsion to bring in Sharia law because this can disturb the peace in our society. So he has made these movements. If he was a batsman, he would have quite a deft footwork, except he would not know when to go on the front foot, when to go on the back foot. And sometimes, like Australia's Steve Smith, who's playing in Pakistan right now, he also has that unique ability of going on the front foot and playing a cracking shot off the back foot. So he is quite versatile. He has today taken a position against Imran Khan. And he is the leader of this group called Pakistan Democratic Movement, which is a group of diverse parties. Now it is he, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who Imran Khan always refers to as Maulana Diesel. Now Pakistan also is a place where Maulanas also get nicknames like this. This is Maulana Diesel. Another one, Samiul Haq, was called Maulana Sandwich, right? And why he was called that is out of our syllabus for today, and maybe again politically incorrect. But these Maulanas are political Maulanas. They also have deep roots in these sort of fundamentalist groups, but they are political Maulanas. So he calls him Diesel or Maulana Diesel because between 1993 and 96, when Benazir Bhutto was in power and Fazlur Rahman supported her government, it was believed or rumored that she gave him the power to give diesel contracts, import contracts to his friends in Afghanistan, and that's how he allegedly made his money. That's why Maulana Diesel. Just like that, later Benazir's husband, Asif Ali Zardari, who's now the head of Pakistan People's Party, he was called Mr. 10% because again, the insinuation was that he allegedly took 10% in all the deals that the government signed. So people acquire these names, and that's what makes this politics so much more colorful and fun. So he said, General Bajwa ने मुझे कहा, इमरान इसको डीजल मत कहो. मैं क्यों नहीं उसको डीजल कहूँगा? वो डीजल है. And the crowd goes up, diesel. And then he says that this whole campaign against me is being run by three stooges. So I think in that speech, there are about 20 references to three stooges. So I checked out who these three stooges are from well-informed journalists in Pakistan. The three stooges are Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif, his brother is a part of the same stooge. So two of them make one stooge. So Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif, there is Asif Ali Zardari, and third is Maulana Fazlur Rahman. And he says, all this tamasha is being carried out against me by these three stooges. And then he says, and when I used a cricketing analogy, talking about Steve Smith's footwork or comparing it with Fazlur Rahman's, I wasn't just taking a flight of fancy into cricket, right? Imran Khan himself in his speeches has been using a lot of cricket. So he says, ये तीनों stooges को मैं एक in swinging Yorker फेंक के तीनों विकेटें गिरा दूंगा. Right? That is his boast, and that is what gets the loudest cheer from the crowd. So what is he doing? He's basically making an appeal using Islam, because he says the Holy Prophet set up the state of Medina, which was the finest welfare state in the history of humankind. And I'm trying to set up something like that in Pakistan. He also says Pakistan can be a superpower, and why not? Why can't Pakistan defeat superpowers? Because he gives an example. He says in 634 AD, I think he said that the Holy Prophet wrote letters to the two great empires of that period, of that era, the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire. And apparently in those letters, he told both the empires that, look, either follow our way or do what we ask you to say, follow us, or you will be destroyed in the course of time. And he said both the empires refused to listen to him. And I am a bit confused because I played that portion a few times, but maybe he said it wrong. He says in 8 to 9 years, I'm not sure if he says 8 to 9 years or 8 to 900 years. I think if you go by history, it should be about 800 years, that both those empires fell. And when I say 800 years, I'm basically looking at the fall in the mid-15th century of Constantinople, which was the home or the capital of the Byzantine Empire. And that is when the Ottoman dynasty was established there, right, in modern Istanbul. So maybe if that is the reference, then it's about 800 years. So he says that ultimately both the empires, and what was the number of Muslims at that point when the Holy Prophet wrote these letters? Just a few thousand. So he says, we Pakistanis should not worry. We are a large country. We have the strongest army in the entire Islamic world. While at the same time, he's questioning that army's leadership and comparing them wrongly, even factually wrongly, with animals for being neutral. I'm saying the comparison is erroneous, somewhat facetiously, because animals are not neutral. You might say you are neutral like a robot or like a machine. Animals, I don't think so. Nevertheless, let's leave animals alone for now. Now, what are the parties that constitute the current government of Imran Khan? His majority is very thin. He needs 172. He has 176 in a house of 342. So PTI, his own party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, has 155. That leaves it 17 short. So from where does he get these other 21 seats? So he gets to 176. MQMP, that's one of the factions of Muhajir Qawmi Mahaz, 7 members. PMLQ, that's the party whose leaders now the Chinese diplomat is meeting. PMLQ has 5. Baluch Awami Party has 5. Then tiny parties, GDA, AML have 3 and 1, and then 3 independents. So this adds up to 176. The opposition right now, the opposition alliance against him is 162. So they are 10 short of pulling it down. Where PML Nawaz has 84, Pakistan People's Party, Zardari Bhutto Party has 56, MMA has 15, MMA is Muttahida Majlis-e-Amal. That's a coalition or that's an alliance of Islamist parties. All the Maulanas are there. Then BNP, Baluch National Party, Mengal Group. Mengal Group is named after Sardar Ataullah Mengal, who was one of the great famous Baluch fighters and chieftains, Baluch nationalists. They have 4 members. Awami National Party from the frontier, that is the party of the family of Bacha Khan or Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. They have 1 and independents 2. What the opposition now believes is that they have driven a wedge in Imran Khan's alliance, and chances are that PMLQ will walk out of it, as will some others, and they might actually have 8 or 10 more than they need. And that is why everybody is now working at it. Now, the only power in Pakistan which can prevent a split or which can cause a split, everybody knows, is the army. And signals that are coming from the army seem like the army is fed up of Imran, particularly his Islamist posturing, also the way he's attacking the Americans and he's attacking the Europeans. The army does not want to be at such odds with the West. They are happy to get Chinese equipment. It's efficient, it's very utilitarian. But once you get used to riding American tanks or American aircraft, it isn't that much fun riding Chinese tanks or Chinese-made aircraft. Also, generals, Pakistani elites have their interests, their children-in-law, properties, investments in Western countries. Nobody has any investments in China. Nobody carries a Chinese passport as a second passport. In Pakistan, you are allowed to carry 2 passports. You can have dual nationality, but nobody has a Chinese passport. People have American passports or British passports mostly. So there is a strong vested interest there. They think that Imran is taking them too far away on a path of anti-Westernism. Now, the big fault line under this impending upheaval is the state of Punjab. To understand how important state of Punjab is to India, think of Uttar Pradesh. We think Uttar Pradesh is a very important state for India politically, and that's why elections in Uttar Pradesh, recent elections, are called semi-finals. 2024 January election being the final. This when Uttar Pradesh accounts for about 16% of India's population and the number of seats in India's parliament, 1/6. In Pakistan, on the other hand, Punjab accounts for about 60%. So if UP at 16 is so crucial. Can you imagine how crucial Pakistan's Punjab is with approximately 60? 60. In fact, that is the reason when Sadat Hassan Manto went to Pakistan, after some time he got a bit fed up and he said, मैं तो ये सोच के आया था, I'd come thinking that people speak Urdu here, but Punjabi जब उर्दू बोलता है तो लगता है झूठ बोल रहा है. That when a Punjabi speaks Urdu, sounds like he's lying. And we had made a reference to this when we had talked about Pakistan's belated census. That showed you that a very vast majority of Pakistanis speak Punjabi and very small percentage of people report Urdu as their mother tongue. So whoever rules Punjab rules Pakistan. At this point, again by hook and by crook, not by hook or crook, hook and crook, with the help of the army, Imran's party rules Punjab in Pakistan. And that government has been quite shambolic, partly because its chief minister was a complete lightweight. Nobody knew him. He had no stature. He had no experience. He was just put there. He was just put there with the presumption that Islamabad will run that government, that Imran Khan and the party will run that government. In the course of time, that incumbent, Usman Buzdar, has become very unpopular and everybody wants him out, particularly PTI's own allies, including PML Qaed. Now, PML Qaed has its own fish to fry in the situation because PML Qaed also has a former Prime Minister, Chief Minister, stuff like that. They also have Parvez Ilahi, who's a former Chief Minister. He's currently the Speaker of the Assembly in Punjab. PMLQ support is crucial for Punjab government to survive. They want the Chief Minister changed, but they don't want the Chief Minister to be replaced by another Chief Minister from PTI. They want one of theirs, ideally Parvez Ilahi, to become the Chief Minister. And if Imran Khan doesn't do it and they pull down his government in Punjab, then his government at the center, or what Pakistanis call the federal government, will become untenable in any case. Now, Imran Khan has been making many references to India in his speeches. He is calling Nawaz Sharif a stooge of India's. He's accusing him for bending over backwards to invite Narendra Modi to a family wedding. He's also saying similar things about Asif Zardari. In fact, if you listen to his speeches, it is the language of a street fight in Punjab. Although, let me say this, that he's not the only one in Pakistani politics who does it. It's quite commonly done. But there, he's also trying to say that, look, because I'm a khudar, because I'm a self-respecting man. For the first time, Pakistan has a self-respecting leader in a long time, because Nawaz Sharif, Benazir Bhutto, Zardari, they all used to suck up to Western powers and others. I don't do it. And that's why he says, see, Trump treated me with great respect. उसने इज्जत दी क्योंकि वो जानता है मैं 2 नंबर का आदमी नहीं हूँ. His exact words, because he knows that I'm not a lightweight. And then he says, I went to Russia. Putin gave me 3 guards of honor because they know who I am and what Pakistan is. The subtext there is, of course, that Biden did no such thing. So Putin khandani aadmi hai and Biden sadak chhap hai, because there's been this big issue that Biden has till today not made a phone call to him, as he made phone calls to important leaders all over the world. And this when Pakistan happens to be among the major non-NATO allies of the US. And that is what he's now using to show his anger and disapproval with the European Union, with Britain, with America. In fact, in these speeches, he's also saying that how can EU ask me to take sides on the Russia issue? After all, are we their slaves? Why haven't they asked India for such a thing? Now, the point is that whether it's EU or Britain or America, they are all lobbying with India also to support their side against Russia, but countries act in their national interest. But anyway, he says that they are not pushing India, they are pushing us because they think that we are slaves. So he's using Islam, he's using nationalism, and he's using populism. So he's saying now any poor person going to a grocery shop or a kirana shop can buy ghee, atta, sugar at 30% discount, and government will fund that discount. He is also offering many interest-free loans. This at a time when his country's negotiations with IMF are paused at a very delicate point, because IMF wants him not to do exactly these things before releasing the next installment of the money. And if they don't do, then Pakistan will be in trouble with balance of payments problem. And that is where the Chinese are now coming in. So the whole thing, I would say the balloon is up in the air. Let us see what happens. So I'll just read out for you the names of the parties that are raised against him. So first of all, it is the Pakistan Democratic Movement, which is a conglomeration of parties, that is BNP Bengal, Jamiyat Ahle Hadith, Jamiyat Ulema Islam, Fazlur Rahman Group, Jamiyat Ulema Pakistan, National Party Bizenjo, Ghosbaksh Bizenjo was also a Baluch Sardar and a wonderful man. Pakhtunkhwa Milli Awami Party, that's the party of the frontier again. PML Nawaz, which is a large group with 84 members in the House. PPP, which again is the second largest group in the opposition with 56 members on the House. Then there is Qawmi Watan Party, QWP, of Aftab Ahmed Sherpa. So all these disparate parties have 162, and they are hoping now that they'll be able to get the remaining 10 and push Imran Khan out. And from every indication you can see that anxieties are for real. Anxieties on Imran Khan's part are real, because unless you have anxieties like that, you don't go and take on your army chief the way he's done. Now, what will happen? If he loses, first of all, once he is removed, nobody has a successor in mind. So what happens with Pakistan? Army will not formally take over. So who do they install there? Now we know that in Pakistan, even a man called Moinuddin Qureshi was primarily an American citizen, also had a Pakistani passport, but had lived in America for a long time, had an American passport. He was also made Prime Minister for some time. So anybody can be made Prime Minister. But do they want it at this moment? I'm not quite sure. And what's also happened in the middle of all this missile from India, his BrahMos from India has strayed into Pakistan mercifully without a warhead. And that has caused its own commotion. I can see, I can understand from what I read of Pakistan and what I understand of Pakistan, that the establishment there, the army there understood what it was. They were informed in time. I believe that DGMOs on both sides spoke on the hotline, that the Indian side picked up the phone, picked up the hotline and told them, listen, kuch gadbad ho gayi hai, don't overreact. And they took the message, right? I don't think his taunting them on this or his boasting about this is going to make any difference. So it's quite evident now that he has gone out to people. And you know what happens? If he loses, I told you, they don't have a replacement. If he wins, then you will have him come back with more power and also in a lot more authoritarian form.